The vibration is what I remember most vividly. It is the only thing that bridges the gap between the man I was and the ghost I became. Sometimes when my hands shake now, the tremors of old age, the doctors say, though I know better, I close my eyes, and I am not sitting in a nursing home garden. I am strapped into the narrow, freezing gut of a Messerschmitt, 5 miles above the earth. The trembling in my fingers is identical to the resonance of the control stick, a buzzing vitality that travels up the arms and settles deep in the marrow. But memory is a liar. It smooths the edges. It tells me I was a soldier, a warrior of the Reich. But the truth is I was a mechanic who happened to be flying. Before the uniform, before the iron crosses and the burning cities, I was a creature of the factory floor. I worked the stamping presses and the lathes in Hamburg. There was a rhythm to that life, a beautiful, predictable cadence. Metal went in, gears turned, oil smelled of sweet earth and heated iron, and something useful came out. A bracket, a piston, a hinge. We built things. That was the logic of my world. Construction. If a machine broke, you listened to it. You put your ear against the casing and let the hum tell you where the sickness lay. A loose bearing sang a high, lonely note. A misaligned gear ground its teeth in a low growl. I understood that language. I thought the war would be the same. I thought it would be a matter of inputs and outputs, of mechanics and physics. I was a fool. At 20,000 feet, the logic of the factory dissolves. The cockpit of the Gustav is not a workspace. It is a coffin made of aluminum and plexiglass. It smells of high-octane fuel, sweat, and the sharp, metallic tang of ozone. And it is cold. God, it is so cold. The heater is a joke. A breathless wheeze against the sub-zero vacuum just beyond the thin glass. My flight suit is bulky, layers of wool and leather that make me feel like a clumsy child. Yet the frost still finds the seams. I check the gauges. Oil temperature, manifold pressure, fuel. The needles hold steady, but I don't trust them. I trust the vibration. I run my gloved thumb over the instrument panel, feeling the heartbeat of the inverted V12 engine just feet in front of my knees. It's a Daimler-Benz, a masterpiece of engineering, but up here it feels fragile. A screaming metal lung trying to breathe in air that is too thin to sustain it. I look down. The clouds are a solid floor of white, hiding the world below. Hiding Germany, hiding Hamburg. Somewhere to the north, my wife, Lot, is likely walking to the market, or perhaps she is already in the cellar. The thought creates a physical pain in my stomach, sharp and twisting, worse than the G-forces. We are defending the Reich. The propaganda says, we are the shield. But the shield is full of holes, and the arrows are made of fire. I remember the last time I was home, the way the dinner table looked. We were eating soup, thin and watery, but Lot had found fresh parsley to sprinkle on top. We laughed at something, my father spilling his spoon, I think. It is a hazy memory, worn down by too much handling. But I remember the fear behind their eyes. They looked at me not as a son or a husband, but as a wall that was failing to hold back the tide. The radio hisses. It is a constant, static-filled presence in my ears, a white noise that grates against the nerves. We are the 7th Staffel, a hunting pack waiting for the scent of blood. I scan the horizon, my eyes burning from the glare. The sky is too big. That is the terrifying truth of aerial warfare. There is too much emptiness, too many places for death to hide. A speck on the canopy could be a speck of dirt, or it could be a Mustang diving at 400 miles an hour to tear you apart. I wipe the glass with a rag, my movements jerky. I am not a killer. I am a man who fixes engines. I want to take this plane apart, lay the bolts on an oil-soaked rag, and understand why it wants to kill me. Haney Furniture Vans reported. Sector Doranton. The voice in my headset is tinny, distorted by the distance and the interference. Furniture vans. That's what we call the heavy bombers. The B-17s. The Americans. The slang is supposed to make them sound harmless, like moving trucks lumbering down a country road. But I know what they carry. They carry the end of my world. My heart hammers against my ribs, a frantic rhythm that fights the steady drone of the engine. We are vectoring south, away from Hamburg. The realization hits me with the force of a physical blow. The bomber stream is heading for the industrial centers, for Schweinfurt or Regensburg. They are going for the ball bearings, for the machines. But every mile we fly south is a mile I am not between the enemy and my home. For a second, just a fraction of a heartbeat, my hand pulls the stick to the left. I want to break formation. I want to bank hard, push the throttle through the gate, and scream north until the Elbe River glitters beneath me. I want to circle my house like a jealous dog, snapping at anything that comes near. The urge is so strong it makes me nauseous. I could say I had engine trouble. I could say my radio failed. Who would know? The sky is a graveyard of secrets. But I look to my right. My wingman, a boy named France who lied about his age to join up, is bobbing in the air currents, his eyes fixed on me. If I turn, he is alone. If I turn, the logic of the machine breaks. We are cogs. If one cog slips, the gear strips. Alle Flugzeuge. Vector zwei wir null. Feindverband in Sicht. Angreifen, the order cuts through my hesitation like a guillotine. Vector 240. Enemy formation in sight. Lieutenant, the decision is made for me. I am no longer a man with a wife in Hamburg. I am a component of the Luftwaffe. I exhale a shuddering breath that fogs the inside of my oxygen mask, and I kick the rudder. The horizon tilts. The blue world spins. I push the throttle forward, and the engine howls in protest, a sound of raw mechanical fury that drowns out the beating of my own heart. We climb. The air grows thinner, the light sharper. I am listening to the engine now, really listening. There is a subtle dissonance in the supercharger, a high-pitched whine that shouldn't be there. My factory ears pick it up instantly. It sounds like a dry bearing, or perhaps the fuel mixture is running too lean in the ascent. A normal pilot wouldn't hear it, but I can feel the friction in the metal, the microscopic wear of steel against steel. It's a complaint. The machine is telling me it is tired, that it is being pushed beyond its design. I pat the dashboard, a stupid, superstitious gesture. I think, then I see them. At first they are just geometry, a dark smudge against the blinding blue, geometric and rigid. As we close the distance, the smudge resolves into dots, and the dots resolve into shapes. It is not a formation of airplanes. It is a flying city, a migration of silver leviathans. There must be hundreds of them, stepped up in layers, a staircase of aluminum stretching into the sun. The sheer scale of it creates a hollow feeling in my chest, a vertigo that has nothing to do with altitude. This is not war as the poets describe it. This is industry. This is an assembly line of destruction, miles long, churning through the sky with the inevitability of a glacier. We are gnats flying into a furnace. Staffel attacki, the command dissolves the trance. The sky, previously empty and silent save for the drone, suddenly erupts. It is not sound. Not yet. It is light. The bombers begin to sparkle. Little flashes of light ripple along their wings and fuselages, like camera bulbs popping at a premiere. But these are heavy machine guns, hundreds of them, turning the air between us into a solid wall of lead. I pick a target, a B-17 on the outer edge of the formation, slightly lagging. It looks heavy, pregnant with deaths. I push the nose down, building speed, trading altitude for energy. The world narrows down to the glowing ring of my Rivi gun sight. My hands move without my permission, guided by drill and panic. The vibration in the stick changes, becoming violent and jerky as the air resistance mounts. Tracers drift past my canopy, lazy glowing orbs that snap into terrifying speed as they flash by. They look beautiful like fireworks, until one punches a hole through my left wing. I see the fabric tear, the aluminum curl up like a peeled orange. I don't feel fear anymore. I feel a cold, detached calculation. My mind whispers, I am in range. I squeeze the triggers. The plane shudders as the cannons fire, a rhythmic thumping that rattles my teeth. I see the shells strike home. Sparkles dance across the silver skin of the bomber. Pieces of metal fly off, cowling glass. Debris. I am tearing the machine apart. I am the mechanic in reverse. But the giant does not fall. It does not burn. It simply absorbs the punishment, flying on with a terrible, stoic indifference. The gunners in the waist windows and the top turret are tracking me. I see the muzzle flashes directed at my face. It is impossible. I hit him. I hit him hard. In the factory, if you smash a gear with a hammer, it breaks. Here, the laws of physics seem suspended by the sheer will of the enemy. I pull up hard, the G-force crushing me into the seat, gray darkness creeping into the edges of my vision. I have to get out of the kill zone. I roll over the top, looking down. The sky is a chaotic tapestry of smoke trails, falling debris, and twisting fighters. I see a Messerschmitt, maybe France, disintegrate in a ball of orange flame, vanishing in the blink of an eye. No shoot, just gone. I line up for a second pass. I am screaming inside my mask, a wordless cry of rage and impotence. I dive again, head on this time. The closing speed is nearly 600 miles an hour. The bomber grows in my windshield like a swelling tumor. I fire everything. Cannons, machine guns. The cockpit of the bomber shatters. I see the nose dip. Smoke pours from the number 3 engine, a thick, oily black ribbon unspooling across the sky. Got you, I whisper. Got you, you bastard. The bomber drops a wing and begins a slow, spiraling descent. A victory, a meaningless temporary victory. Then the world ends. There is no sound of the impact, only a sensation of being kicked by a horse in the small of the back. The instrument panel explodes in a shower of glass and sparks. Something strikes my shoulder, numb and heavy. The cockpit fills with smoke, acrid, blinding smoke that tastes of burning rubber and copper. The engine note changes instantly. The smooth roar becomes a chaotic clattering, like a bag of bolts thrown into a blender. My mechanical intuition screams the diagnosis before my eyes see the oil pressure drop to 0. The crankshaft is shattered. The heart of the machine has stopped. The propeller feathers turning slowly, uselessly. A windmill in a hurricane. The silence that follows is heavier than the noise of battle. It is the silence of the grave. The vibration is gone. The living trembling of the plane has been replaced by the sick, swooping sensation of falling. I am no longer a pilot. I am a man falling inside a metal stone. I struggle with the canopy release, my fingers slipping on the latch. The smoke is choking me. Below, the German countryside rushes up to meet me, a patchwork quilt of green and brown that does not care about my war, does not care about my skill, and certainly does not care about the man named Dieter who just wanted to fix things. I am falling, and all I can think of is the silence. The earth does not catch you. It breaks you. The impact is not a noise, but a physical erasure of time. One moment I am falling, and the next I am lying in a furrow of overturned soil, the taste of copper and bile in my throat. My chest feels as though it has been crushed in a vice. I try to inhale, and my ribs scream, a jagged, hot agony that tells me something inside is snapped. I claw at the straps of my harness, my hands shaking so violently I can barely operate the buckles. I have to get out. The machine is dead, and it is burning. I tumble from the cockpit onto the soft, damp ground of a turnip field. The air here is cold. It smells of dirt and manure, a shocking, organic contrast to the sterile scent of high-altitude oxygen and aviation fuel. I drag myself away from the wreck, my flight suit snagging on the rough earth. Behind me, the Bf-109, my metal skin, is a twisted sculpture of smoking aluminum. The propeller is bent into a grotesque shape, buried deep in the soil. I stare at it, panting, waiting for the explosion, but it never comes. Just the hissing of cooling metal and the distant, low drone of the bombers fading to the south. I stand up. My knees buckle, but I force them straight. I am miles from the base. I am alive. But as I turn my head toward the north, toward Hamburg, the relief evaporates. The horizon is gone. Where the city should be, there is only a wall of blackness. It is not a cloud. It is a solid architecture of smoke, rising miles into the atmosphere, blotting out the sun, The bottom of the column glows with a dull, malevolent red pulse. It looks like the door to a furnace has been kicked open. I stumble toward a road at the edge of the field. A cubble wagon, muddy and battered, is rattling down the lane. I wave my arms, a frantic, disjointed motion. The vehicle slows, the brakes screeching. The driver is a boy no older than 18, his face streaked with soot. He looks at my flight suit, at the iron cross at my throat, and nods. He doesn't speak. There are no words for what we are seeing ahead. We drive in silence. As we get closer, the day turns into night. The smoke swallows the sunlight, casting the world in a sickly, orange twilight. Ash begins to fall on the windshield, soft and gray like snow. It gathers in the corners of the glass. It is not wood ash. It is greasy. It smears when the wipers move. The truck stops at the perimeter of the district. The road is impassable. Craters the size of houses have swallowed the pavement. I get out. The heat hits me instantly, a physical blow, dry and searing, sucking the moisture from my eyes. The roar of the firestorm is deafening, a constant rushing wind that sounds like 1,000 freight trains passing at once. The fire is creating its own weather system, sucking oxygen in from the surrounding streets to feed the inferno at the center. I begin to run. I run past firefighters who are standing limp, their hoses dry, staring at buildings that are melting rather than burning. I run past a tram car that has been fused to its tracks, the glass windows turned into puddles on the street. I am looking for familiar landmarks, for the bakery on the corner, for the factory chimney that marked the turn toward my street. They are gone. The geography of my life has been erased. Laisel, I scream. The name is torn from my throat, lost instantly in the roar of the flames. Mother, I turn a corner, and I stop. This is my street. I know it by the angle of the pavement, by the iron fence of the churchyard at the end of the block. But the apartment building, the gray stone facade, the window boxes where my mother grew geraniums. The heavy oak door, it is not there. There is only a mound of rubble 3 stories high. Beams of timber stick out like broken ribs. A fine white dust coats everything, ghosting the wreckage. I scramble up the pile. The bricks are hot to the touch, burning my palms. I am digging, throwing aside masonry that weighs as much as an engine block. My mechanical strength fueled by a panic that feels like madness. I am looking for a pocket of air. I am looking for a cellar entrance. I am looking for hope, but all I find is silence beneath the noise. My hand brushes against something soft. I freeze. My heart hammers against my broken ribs. I brush away the dust, the grit grinding under my fingertips. It is a dress, blue cotton with white flowers. I know this pattern. My mother sewed it. I pull desperate, frantic, but the fabric is pinned beneath a slab of concrete that no man could move. I dig around it, clawing until my fingernails tear and blade. And then I see it, lying loose in the rubble, untouched by the fire, as if placed there by a cruel joke. It is the doll, the one with the missing eye, the one I bought for Liesel with my first paycheck from the factory, years before I ever sat in a cockpit. It stares up at the smoke-choked sky, its plastic face smiling. I pick it up. It is light, so terribly light. My legs give way. I collapse into the jagged ruin of my home. I curl around the doll, pressing it to my chest, the plastic hard against my bruising. The roar of the firestorm fades into a dull hum. The heat, the smoke, the war, it all recedes. There is only the doll, and the crushing, absolute weight of what I have done. I built engines to defend this. I flew into the sun to stop this, and I failed. The machine worked perfectly, but the harvest is ruined. I sit there for hours, or maybe minutes. Time has no meaning in hell. Eventually hands touch my shoulders. Strong, rough hands. Not enemies, rescuers. They pull me up. I do not resist. I am a rag doll, just like the one I clutch in my left hand. They led me away from the grave of my family, through the burning streets, back to the world of the living. But I do not go with them. The dieter who walked into that fire died there. The man who walks out is something else entirely. I am returned to the base. They put me in the infirmary. They tape my ribs. They wash the soot from my skin. But the stain of it feels permanent, tattooed into the pores. 3 days later, I am standing on the tarmac. The Staffelkapitän points to a new plane. A Gustav model. Brand new. The paint is fresh. The canopy gleaming. It is a masterpiece of engineering. A perfect machine. She's yours, Mueller, he says, clapping me on the shoulder. We need you up there. The bombers will be back tomorrow. I look at the plane. I look at the engine cowling. I can imagine the pistons inside, the beautiful, synchronized dance of steel and oil. I used to love that sound. I used to think it was the heartbeat of a new Germany. I climb onto the wing. I settle into the cockpit. My hands move automatically, flipping switches, priming the fuel pump. Muscle memory. I am a factory worker on an assembly line that produces only death. I start the engine. The propeller coughs, then catches, roaring into life. But I do not feel the surge of power. I do not feel the pride. I listen to the engine, and I do not hear a symphony. I hear the screaming of the wind through the ruins of Hamburg. I hear the silence of a blue cotton dress trapped under stone. I will fly. I will shoot. I will kill. But I am already dead. The room is quiet. The light that filters through the sheer curtains is soft, not like the harsh glare of the sun at 20,000 feet. It catches the dust motes dancing in the air. I look at my hands. They are old now. The skin is thin like parchment, spotted with age. The knuckles are swollen. These hands used to be steady. They could calibrate a fuel injector by feel. They could hold a control stick steady in a dive that would make other men black out. Now they tremble, not from fear, just from time, the slow, rusting oxidation of a machine that has run too long. I sit in this chair, in a house that is not in Hamburg. I never went back to live there. I could not walk those streets without seeing the ghosts on every corner. On the shelf next to me, there is a glass case. Inside it sits the doll. The plastic is yellowed now, the dress faded. It is the only thing I have. People ask me about the war. They ask about the dogfights. They ask about the medals. They want to know what it was like to be a knight of the sky, to duel among the clouds. They want the romance of the fighter pilot. I look at the camera, at the lens that stares back like a gun barrel. I lean forward. My voice is a dry rattle, like leaves blowing over concrete. We were told we were wolves, I say. We were told we were the shield. We thought that if we fought hard enough, if we were skilled enough, we could keep the horror away. We thought the war was something that happened up there, in the blue, between machines. I pause, taking a breath that whistles in my chest. But gravity always wins. Everything that goes up must come down. The brass casings, the wreckage, the bombs, and the men. I look at the doll in the case, then back to you. I was a mechanic before I was a soldier. I knew that if you mistreat a machine, it breaks. If you push it past its limits, it shatters. We treated the world like a machine we could force to our will. We ignored the red line. And when the engine blew, it didn't just kill the pilot. It killed everyone watching. I rubbed my thumb over the arm of the chair. We were told we were wolves, protecting the fold from the bombers in the sky. But in the end, the sky belongs to no one. When you make it rain fire, you cannot be surprised when your own house burns. There are no heroes in the rubble, only ghosts. Remember that. This memory is a shard of glass I carry. Help me pull it out. Subscribe to keep this history alive.